Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, it's October. We're only 13 months away from the 2024 presidential election. We're also 3 months and change away from the Iowa caucuses, which will be the first voting for 2024. So we're kind of moving along here pretty quickly. And it's been a couple months since we last did a presidential election prediction in which we had Trump very narrowly prevailing over Biden. But honestly, there's a good chance that Trump is the favorite right now, objectively speaking, even according to the metrics that liberals are touting. And even over at CNN, they're panicking. And even Democrats may be thinking about trying to replace Biden with somebody like Gavin Newsom. I don't believe that's going to happen, but you never know. They clearly understand the writing's on the wall. Trump is in the best position politically to win a presidential election that he's ever been in, whether if it was back in 2016 or leading up to 2020. So you look at the polls, and what do they show? Donald Trump is winning the popular vote in most of the polls that have been conducted, the same polls that underestimated him in 2016 and 2020 vastly. And it's also important to note that all but one of these polls has Donald Trump winning the Electoral College. So let's say Trump loses the popular vote by 4. He probably still takes Wisconsin, Nevada, Pennsylvania, just given trends, and he goes out there and he wins another 4 years. And that's how it works. And the polls would have to be wrong by over 5 points nationally, which we haven't seen a polling error that big for Donald Trump to not exactly win the Electoral College. And a lot can change. Polls are just a snapshot in time. They're not nothing. They're also not everything. We've been saying that for a while. But I think it's important that nevertheless we do take them into consideration somewhat, as well as other metrics. The economy's not doing so well. Third-party candidates are running. They're likely going to take more away from Biden than they're going to take away from Donald Trump. And what that is going to do is it's going to probably end up, we'll fill the map out, but it's probably going to end up giving Trump, at least right now, the White House. But still, we have to fill out the map. Is the math there? It's 270 to win. We're going to start off with the safe red states and fill them out, the states that no matter what are going to go Republican. They're very ancestrally Republican historically. Even in landslides, they go Republican. That's the way it works. We'll also add all of Nebraska except the 2nd district on top of that. We'll throw Alaska in there, even though the future of that state could be a little weird. And also Iowa and Ohio will finally achieve safe status this time around, along with Maine's 2nd district, which gives Donald Trump a floor of 149 electoral votes. So already he's more than halfway there. Now let's fill out these states that are going to go for Joe Biden, no matter what happens. You have the Western Seaboard, very liberal there. You have Illinois. You have New York, even though the margins in some of these states are going to get closer. And as a result, they could hand Donald Trump a popular vote victory. But keep in mind, we don't elect presidents based on the popular vote. We elect them via the Electoral College, and that is true. Also, Colorado, that's the new entry for the Democrats into their safe column, as well as Hawaii, even though I do expect Trump to potentially get some historically decent margins for a Republican in Hawaii. He improved vastly there last time around, and Biden's response to whatever took place there earlier this year, not very adequate, and that seems to be a recurring theme with Biden's presidency. So, nevertheless, Democrats have a higher floor with the safe states just because you have states like California and New York in the safe column, but Republicans will have the state of Florida not as a swing state this time around. In the likely column, it will go for the Republicans. You see what happened there in 2020, and you saw the state almost move into the likely column. You saw Trump almost flip Miami-Dade County. That's going to happen this time around. The state party's competent, and you have more conservatives, mainly retirees, moving into Florida, and you also have groups like Cubans moving right as well. So that's going to give Florida to the Republicans. Also, in the likely Republican column, I believe we're going to be putting the state of Texas in the likely Republican column. And this may be a year where the state even potentially moves to the right, because Biden's popularity has tanked in the state of Texas. And you see some of these trends in South Texas, and even in some of these cities like Houston, you see a little bit of a corner being turned there. It only moved left by one, actually trended right. And the whole state trended compared to the national environment, like 1 point to the left. And obviously it moved in terms of its swing by more than that because the national vote moved as a whole. If you see the national vote swing back, it's possible Texas could go out there and turn a corner. There's still some room to grow in a lot of these areas where you have a lot of red arrows, and I'm not saying there's still not going to be a little bit of a bottoming out in some of these suburbs and some of these counties like Collin and Denton, but still, either way, Republicans in Texas, much like Florida, you have a competent party. I think they're going to go out there and they're going to get it done. And even people like Ken Paxton, who were scandal-plagued per se, at least in the eyes of the public, and on top of that, had a lot of infighting within the party, and they were saying he's not electable, we need to primary him. Well, he ended up winning by 10 points. And that's just one example. But either way, I think you look at the state of Texas, this is staying a Republican state there, at least this time around. So there you have it. You have two of these likely Republican states on the map here. We're also going to move on to the likely Democrat states. New Mexico, it's possible, depending on Hispanic trends, that Republicans could make up like 1% there. Also, Biden's energy policy, not super popular in the state of New Mexico. The Republican Party there is extremely incompetent. I think it could be a lot closer state in the future if they fix that problem. But as a result, right now, likely Democrat. And in terms of other states that are going to be in the likely Democrat column, I think we have the state of Maine. I think it'll get closer because of third-party votes being taken away from Biden. It's going to make states like Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Michigan closer. But nevertheless, Maine at large will stay in the Democrat column. Also, Virginia, which again, this one I think could have the biggest comeback of all. There was a poll that came out today that has Trump and Biden tied, but it had like 30% undecided, so I really wouldn't take that too much into account. But the state of Virginia, especially with third parties, the rise of a competent Republican Party, I could see it getting closer. By how much, the jury's still out on that, but we'll have to see. So other than that, likely Democrat states, I don't believe we really have any. So we're going to move on to the lean Republican states. We'll start off with North Carolina. Republicans there in the midterms, they won. It wasn't exactly the biggest victory overall, but still they were outspent and they still won that Senate seat. They held the Senate seat despite the fact you had an outgoing incumbent that was scandal-plagued. But nevertheless, they picked it up. And the state, in terms of its growth and in terms of the suburbs of Charlotte, they're not moving left the same way that the suburbs of Atlanta are moving left due to different demography and race and education. And you also do have the northeastern part of the state move right. It continued to move right in 2022. We'll see what happens when it's all said and done. Yes, some parts of the state are moving left, other parts are moving right. Who knows what the future is going to hold, but it does seem, because the Republicans there, once again, are competent, that they'll likely be able to go out there and get it done. So North Carolina is a state I expect to be in the lean Republican column. Wisconsin, I had in the tilt Republican column. We're going to move that because of third parties potentially helping Donald Trump out in this race. And on top of that, you see the state of Wisconsin and you look at the arrows, a lot of red arrows, a lot of room to grow in the rural part of the state and the smaller metros. And on top of that, people are talking about the wow counties. But I mean, Democrats do have some sort of a demographic ceiling regarding educational demography, especially in a county like Washington County, where you have a very large white working class population there. I see them gaining in Ozaukee. That one's going to get closer, in my opinion. It could flip in 2028, but still, as of right now, it's also the smallest of the three. It's not going to make a dent regarding the state's full trend, I have it going lean Republican this cycle, especially if Republicans are embracing the ballot chasing game and operation, which they actually seem to be doing to some extent. So we'll move on to the lean Democrat states. New Hampshire, third parties will push this one closer. They almost flipped it to Trump in 2016. Same with Minnesota, which again is a very weird state. And the Minneapolis suburbs, I just don't understand what's going on there. You see the city burned to the ground in 2020 and they moved left off a cliff. But these people tend to live in their own bubble. The rural areas are still getting redder, but not exactly by enough to offset that. So 245 for Trump, 225 for Biden. We got to fill out the remainder of these states here. Can Donald Trump get a bigger victory than 2016? Is it possible? Well, actually, let me fill out Nebraska second in the lean Democrat column. The Republicans there, they could have redistricted that seat to be more favorable. They didn't necessarily do it to their potential, where they could have had it as either a close swing district at the presidential level or a Republican leaning district if possible. But nevertheless, we can win without it. It's not that big of a deal. So let's go east to west and fill out the tilt states, which, by the way, Pennsylvania, I have it going Republican, especially because Republicans are embracing the ballot chasing operation there. And on top of that, the Democrat Party in the state is broke. It is incompetent. I do expect Republicans to go out there and win, especially with the third-party vote share, which could potentially even flip Michigan back to Trump, because you look at Donald Trump's messaging, you look at what he's talking about with the pro-worker agenda and economic nationalism that he's laying out there that resonates with people in Michigan, especially if you have an even deeper economic downturn over the next year, which possibly could happen. But Biden's popularity in those states off a cliff. Why did Republicans struggle there in the midterms? Part of it was because Trump wasn't on the ballot, and also Biden wasn't on the ballot, and you had candidates that did not really associate with Biden, but they weren't necessarily bringing the star power that Donald Trump has to supercharge white working class turnout. And that's something Republicans are going to have to deal with in future election cycles. They're going to have to mitigate that in order to get high turnout in these places. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Georgia, you talk about third parties. Cornell West, I could see him getting 2% in the state of Georgia alone. That would be enough to peel the state off for Donald Trump again. Same thing goes for Arizona in third parties. Donald Trump's got a very low ceiling for a Republican, but he also has a very, very high floor of around 47%. And I think people are really writing off the Senate race because they don't really understand that, especially when you have somebody like Kyrsten Sinema out there who votes with Biden 100% of the time. I don't care if she barely dilutes his agenda. She's not this true independent, because even a true independent still would not be voting with Biden that much regardless. Even Manchin doesn't have that high of a voting record for Biden. But then you look at the state of Nevada. This is a time where Nevada is moving right. We know that it's moved right the past few election cycles in terms of its trend and its swing. Clark County will get closer, in my opinion, especially in a presidential year where you have higher turnout for white working class voters, Hispanic voters, two groups that are moving to the right in the state of Nevada. Even if it's just marginally, the state's very close. That's going to be enough to flip it. So here's the final prediction. Donald Trump 312, Biden 226. Is this more of a lofty prediction than some of my other ones I've done? Yeah, but if the popular vote stays like this, I think you might see this map actually come into fruition, especially given Donald Trump's messaging down the stretch, the fact that the indictments are bouncing off, they don't really tend to be hurting him. And on top of that, Republicans are going out there embracing the ballot chasing game the way the Democrats have done it for the past few election cycles. It bit us in the rear end. We're finally waking up to that, so we've got a shot. And it's possible that even a state like Virginia could be closer than that. It's also possible Trump would fall short in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, but then he still would have enough electoral votes to win the election. So it's a long time between now and Election Day, but with the polls showing Donald Trump doing well, he's doing better in the primary polls every day, it's time for a little bit of optimism. This is the optimism prediction here. Trump 312, Biden 226. Now, since we're getting so close to Election Day in terms of the fact that we're only 13 months away, I'll be doing one every month at the beginning of the month, not just once every other month. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.